Shalom and welcome to This Week in Torah. Have you ever prayed for an answer and received only silence? Not because God wasn't listening, but because sometimes His answer isn't an explanation. Sometimes His answer is an invitation to trust Him one step at a time. And that may be one of the most surprising lessons in this week's Torah portion. Because for many of us, the hardest part of suffering isn't always the pain itself, it's the unanswered questions. Why did this happen? Why now? Why me? And surprisingly, that's exactly where this week's Torah portion begins. Parashat Chukat opens with one of the most mysterious commandments in the entire Torah, the Paraduma, the red heifer. The Torah introduces it with the words, Zot Chukat Torah. This is the decree of the Torah. It is a chok, a commandment whose deepest meaning lies beyond human understanding. And Rashi points out something remarkable. The ashes of the red heifer purify those who become ritually impure, while those involved in preparing it themselves became temporarily impure. It is a paradox, and perhaps that is precisely the point. Not everything in life fits neatly into our understanding. Rashi cites a beautiful teaching from our sages. The red heifer is compared to a mother who comes to clean up after a child. Just as the sin of the golden calf brought spiritual damage, the cow, Paraduma, the mother, comes to restore purity and healing. Our sages further tell us that even King Shlomo, renowned for his wisdom, acknowledged the mystery of the red heifer when he said, I thought I could understand it, but it remained far from me. Even the wisest man who ever lived recognized that human understanding has limits. And perhaps wisdom begins not with having all the answers, but with having the humility to recognize that we do not. This same portion records the deaths of Miriam and later Aaron. The generation is coming to an end. The Jewish people are entering a season of uncertainty and transition. Soon afterwards, Moses himself experiences one of the most painful moments of his life. God tells him to speak to the rock, but instead he strikes it. And because of that moment, Moses learns that he will not lead the people into the promised land. The Torah does not hide the struggles of its greatest leaders. Their greatness lies not in perfection, but in faithfulness. And that brings us to a profound teaching from Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik. In Kol Dodi Dofek, Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik teaches that Judaism often shifts our attention away from asking, why did this happen? And towards asking, what is God asking me now? The Rav distinguishes between fate and destiny. We do not choose every circumstance that enters our lives. We do choose how we respond to those circumstances. Fate is given. Destiny is created. The question is not only, why am I suffering? The question is, how will I respond? Not explanation, but responsibility. Not despair, but purpose. The second half of this week's double portion introduces Balak, king of Moab. Fearful of Israel, he hires Bilam to curse the Jewish people. But every attempt to curse becomes a blessing. And one of those blessings is so beautiful that Jews around the world still recite it every morning. Ma tovu ochalecha Yaakov. How beautiful are your tents, O Yaakov, your dwelling places, O Yisrael. What was intended for harm became a source of blessing. The Chassam Sofer points out that the story of Bilam teaches us that human intentions do not determine history. People make plans. Kings make decisions. Nations rise and fall. But ultimately, divine providence guides the course of history. Human power is real, but it is not ultimate. And perhaps many of us have experienced something similar. A door closed, a dream that fell apart, a season of disappointment that came, and only years later did we discover that God had been opening another path all along. Not every question receives an answer, but God is often writing a bigger story than the one we can presently see. Chukat teaches us that there are limits to human understanding. Balak teaches us that there are limits to human power. Together, they remind us that neither intellect nor power is ultimate. God is. And because of that, we do not need to see the whole path before taking the next step. So what does that mean for us today? We live in a world overflowing with information, yet many people feel more anxious and uncertain than ever. We can search for answers in seconds. Meaning, trust, and hope cannot be downloaded. The Torah offers another way. It teaches humility. It teaches responsibility. and it teaches trust. Maybe the challenge of this week is not to ask, when will I understand everything? But instead, what is the next faithful step God is asking me to take today? Because sometimes growth begins where certainty ends. And maybe the answer you've been searching for is not an explanation. Maybe it's the courage to take the next step. Thank you for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, may God bless you with wisdom, peace, and the strength to keep walking, even when you cannot see the whole road. Shalom, and we'll see you next week on This Week in Torah. Shalom, and welcome to This Week in Torah.